Archaeologists spend years, well, sometimes decades, digging through dirt, hoping to find a tiny sliver of history. They do their research, map out excavation sites, and carefully unearth the past. But sometimes, history doesn't wait for the experts. Some of the most incredible findings weren't made by professionals. They were found by everyday people, like you and me. And ironically, some of these finds reveal more about the past than an entire career in archaeology ever could. So let's take a look at 15 unbelievable discoveries that were made by ordinary folks. Number 15. A gold nugget. Gold prospecting sounds fun until you realize most people spend years looking and find nothing but disappointment and old nails. But not this lucky guy. Walking along a beach near Ballarat, Australia, an amateur gold digger was doing the usual, waving his metal detector around, hoping for something cool. Then, out of nowhere, his detector went wild. He started digging and uncovered what looked like a chunk of scrap metal. Maybe an old car part? But as he dug deeper, it got bigger and shinier. Turns out, he had just unearthed a massive 11.5-pound gold nugget, one of the biggest ever found in the area. When he took it in for appraisal, the price tag came in at over $300,000. Not bad for a lucky day at the beach. Meanwhile, the rest of us still can't find our missing socks, let alone a life-changing pile of gold. Life isn't fair, is it? Number 14. King Tut's tomb. Howard Carter was running out of luck. After years of searching for King Tut's tomb, funding was about to be cut off, and his team had basically given up. But just when things seemed hopeless, help came from the most unexpected place: a bored water boy. The kid, just messing around, started poking the ground with a stick and hit a stone step buried under the sand. Carter rushed over and ordered a complete dig. 22 days later, they uncovered what is now the most legendary tomb in history, packed with gold, statues, and treasures untouched for over 3,000 years. Had that kid been doing his actual job instead of playing in the dirt, this tomb might have stayed hidden for decades. Instead, Carter became famous while the kid, well, his name isn't in the history books, but let's be honest, he deserves at least a footnote. Why do people take credit for someone else's efforts? Number 13. The Terracotta Army. In 1974, a farmer in China just wanted to dig a well. Pretty normal, right? But after 2 days of hard work, his shovel hit something solid. At first, he thought he had found an old jar, which honestly would have still been useful. His friend even told him to be careful so they could use it for storage. But as he kept digging, it became clear this wasn't some old pottery. It was a life-sized terracotta statue, and beneath it, well, there were thousands more. Turns out they had stumbled upon the legendary Terracotta Army, an entire underground force of over 8,000 soldiers, horses, and chariots built to guard China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, in the afterlife. What the heck? This was one of the greatest archaeological discoveries ever made. As for the farmer, he was paid a grand total of 5,000 yuan, basically nothing, while the site became a billion-dollar tourist attraction. But hey, at least they let him sign autographs at the museum. Number 12. A golden house. Most people inherit old furniture, dusty photo albums, or, if they're lucky, a little cash. But one French man who inherited a house in Normandy found something much better: a hidden fortune. It started with a small box of gold coins fastened to a chair. Weird, but not too crazy. Then he found a whiskey box filled with even more gold. And just when he thought he had hit the jackpot, he uncovered gold bars. Lots of them. When he finally tallied it all up, the total was a mind-blowing $3.7 million. But before he could start celebrating, the French government swooped in with their 45% inheritance tax. Yep, $1.6 million is gone just like that. Still, walking into a fortune, even after taxes, is better than inheriting a bunch of unpaid bills. Safe to say, this guy's family had some seriously rich secrets. All right, guys, now let's head over to number 11, Ferrari 330 GT. Buying a house is already a big deal, but imagine signing the papers, moving in, and then casually finding a rare Ferrari in the garage. Well, of course, it sounds like a pretty movie tale, but that's exactly what happened to a man in Wyoming who bought a house for $285,500 without checking the garage first. After closing the deal, he finally opened it up and found a dust-covered but nearly perfect 1966 Ferrari 330 GT sitting there, abandoned like an old lawnmower. At first, he thought it was just an old car, but after a little research, he discovered its true worth, over $500,000. The real mystery? How do you forget you own a Ferrari? No one knows why the previous owner left it behind, but one thing is for sure. This new homeowner got one hell of a bonus. We mean, he got the house and a car, while most of us are happy when we find a quarter in our pockets. Number 10. The oldest frozen caveman. In 1991, two hikers trekking through the Ötztal Alps in Europe decided to take a shortcut. Instead of an easier route, they stumbled upon something straight out of a horror movie. A naked, shriveled body lying face down in the snow. The skin was tight, the flesh was eroded, and the whole thing looked eerily fresh. Convinced they'd just walked into a murder scene, they snapped a photo and rushed to notify the police. It took a 4-day operation to extract the body. But once scientists got a closer look, they realized this wasn't some missing hiker. This man had died over 5,000 years ago, around 3,300 BC. Nicknamed Ötzi the Iceman, he turned out to be the oldest naturally preserved human mummy ever found. His body and belongings, including a copper axe, gave researchers an unparalleled look into life during the Copper Age. All thanks to two hikers who took the wrong path. Number 9. A 1,700-year-old seal from an emperor. In 1784, a Japanese rice farmer was out doing routine work, repairing an irrigation ditch, when something shiny caught his eye between two rocks. He dug it out, cleaned it off, and found himself holding a solid gold seal with intricate markings. At first, it was just a fascinating object, but when he showed it to a local scholar, history changed forever. The scholar identified it as the legendary seal of Emperor Guangwu of Han, given to a Japanese emissary in AD 57, marking the first recorded diplomatic contact between China and Japan. The discovery was amazing because it confirmed early historical records and even played a role in shaping Japan's writing system. Before this, Japan had never seen Chinese characters, but this seal helped introduce them, eventually evolving into kanji, a script still used today. A simple day of farm work turned into one of Japan's greatest historical discoveries, all thanks to a well-placed rock and a farmer. Number 8. A worker drops a Buddha statue, finds solid gold inside. For 700 years, a Buddha statue sat quietly in a Thai monastery, looking like nothing more than an old plaster relic. It wasn't particularly valuable or significant, just another religious artifact. That all changed in 1935 when workers were moving the statue to an old storage building. One worker, either clumsy or just unlucky, dropped the statue. As it hit the ground, chunks of plaster cracked off, revealing something shiny underneath. When they peeled back more of the plaster, they found something unbelievable. The statue was actually made of solid gold, weighing an incredible 5 metric tons. Turns out, centuries earlier, monks had covered the statue in plaster to hide it from invading armies. But over time, people forgot what was underneath. If that worker hadn't fumbled and dropped it, the largest golden Buddha in the world might still be sitting in a dusty corner, completely ignored. Number 7. A man found an underground city. Most people who renovate their homes might find old newspapers or forgotten junk behind the walls. But in 1963, a Turkish man found something a little more exciting, an entire underground city. While knocking down a wall in his home, he uncovered a hidden tunnel. Instead of stopping, he kept digging and discovered a vast network of tunnels, staircases, and rooms stretching 85 meters, or 280 feet, underground. What he had just unearthed was Derinkuyu, an ancient underground city dating back to the 12th to 15th centuries BC. Originally built by the Hittites, the city was designed to shelter up to 20,000 people during wars and invasions. It had everything: living quarters, storage rooms, ventilation shafts, and even places of worship. Today, the site is a major tourist attraction, all because one guy decided his house needed a little tweak. Number 6. An ancient Roman villa. Most people use Google Earth to check out their neighborhoods, find their houses, or maybe snoop on places they'll never visit. But in Italy, one man used it to discover a lost piece of history. While randomly zooming in on different locations, he noticed an unusual oval-shaped formation on the ground, about 1,640 feet long. It looked strange, so out of curiosity, he uploaded the image to his blog and contacted some local archaeologists. Turns out, he had just identified the ruins of an ancient Roman villa buried underground. Once archaeologists started digging, they uncovered one of the most significant historical sites in the region, all thanks to a guy killing time on his computer. It just goes to show, sometimes boredom leads to the biggest discoveries. Number 5. The Dead Sea Scrolls. In 1947, a group of Bedouin herders were out in the desert doing something pretty ordinary, searching for a lost goat. Their search led them to a cave that hadn't been touched in centuries. Instead of finding their goat, they stumbled upon jars filled with ancient manuscripts. Unaware of their importance, the herders took some of the scrolls into town and sold them for just $60 to a trader. What they didn't know was that they had just uncovered the Dead Sea Scrolls, a collection of manuscripts including some of the oldest known copies of the Old Testament, dating back over 2,000 years. Eventually, some scrolls made their way to the US, selling for $250,000. When the herders realized their mistake, they didn't repeat it. Instead, they started working with archaeologists and helped uncover 981 ancient texts, earning a well-deserved $300,000 for their efforts. Not bad for a few guys who just wanted their goat back. Number 4. Money found in an attic. One evening in Utah, Josh Farron was in his workshop when he noticed something odd, a scrap of carpet sticking out of the ceiling. Curious, he pulled on it, revealing an attic access panel he hadn't noticed before. Inside, he found an old metal container. When he lifted the lid, he couldn't believe his eyes. Rolls of money tied up in twine. But that was just the beginning. As he kept searching, he found 7 more boxes and 2 giant trash bags, all full of cash. The total? A staggering $45,000. Now, most people might have considered keeping the money, but Josh didn't hesitate. He called the previous owners. When they arrived, they were stunned. It turns out, the house had been inherited, and the original owner, likely their father, had hidden the money years ago. Instead of walking away richer, Josh walked away with something even more valuable, a clear conscience and a story of true integrity. Number 3. Original Superman comic book. Losing a house is a nightmare. That was exactly the situation a U.S. couple found themselves in as they packed up their belongings. Foreclosure was looming, and they had nowhere to turn. As they were clearing out their attic, they came across an old, dust-covered box. Inside? Well, something that would change their lives. A copy of Action Comics #1, one from 1938. Now, if you're not into comics, this might not sound like a big deal. But this issue wasn't just any comic. It was the first ever appearance of Superman, one of the rarest and most valuable comics in existence. Only 99 copies were known to still exist, and each one was valued at $1.5 million. That one forgotten comic book turned out to be the miracle they needed. They sold it and used the money to pay off their mortgage. In the end, Superman didn't just save Metropolis, he saved their home too. Number 2. A piano's hoard. In 2016, 61-year-old piano tuner Martin Backhouse got a routine call to service an old piano at Bishop's Castle Community College. Nothing unusual, until he lifted the keys and made a discovery that left him speechless. Stuffed inside the piano were 7 cloth bags filled with Victorian gold coins. Some of them dated back over 100 years, and when experts examined them, they estimated the collection's worth at a jaw-dropping $640,000. But here's the catch. The Hemmings family, who had owned the piano for 33 years, had no idea the coins were inside. Since they couldn't prove ownership, they missed out on a reward. Instead, Martin got a small cut of the fortune, while the bulk of it was classified as a treasure trove and handed over to the state. Imagine owning a piano full of gold for decades and never knowing it. That's a tough pill to swallow. Number 1. A Staffordshire hoard in the backyard. In 2009, English farmer Terry Herbert was doing something pretty ordinary, wandering around his backyard with his old metal detector, looking for a lost ring his daughter had misplaced. Instead, he found the discovery of a lifetime. The detector started going crazy, and as Terry dug deeper, he uncovered a hoard of 1,500 gold and silver objects from the 7th century. The total weight? 16 pounds. The estimated value? Over $5 million. Since British law states that such finds belong to the country, Terry didn't get to keep the treasure. But he did get a reward, a 50% share of the treasure's value. That's still a life-changing sum. Not bad for a guy just looking for a lost ring. Sometimes history is buried in your own backyard. You just need a metal detector and a little bit of luck. We hope you have enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.